Hi, welcome to Therapy for Nerds. My name's Cassidy Russell, and today we're going to be talking about daddy issues. It seems like you can't go anywhere without finding a superhero with a really terrible relationship with their dads. I don't know why this is, but we're going to specifically focus on one show that has 7 superheroes with a terrible, terrible relationship with their father. That's right, we're talking about the Umbrella Academy. So, with the Umbrella Academy, I wanted to talk about how relationships with parents can influence relationships further down the line. And we kind of see that a little bit with the Umbrella Academy and all of its members. Spoiler warning ahead. So, the members of the Umbrella Academy even comment on daddy issues themselves, and it's largely played off as a joke. All of the characters deal with having a distant father in their own set of ways. Here's a little bit about the premise of the show in case anyone hasn't seen it. The Umbrella Academy follows a group of people that were born under mysterious circumstances. Each were conceived and born on a single day, the same day. One eccentric billionaire, Sir Reginald Hargreaves, took it upon himself to adopt as many of these children as he possibly could. I should say adopt with quotation marks. Why? Well, basically so that he could make his own sort of Justice League or something. It's really not that clear, in the show at least. I heard in the comics it's different. What is sort of clear is he wanted to stop the apocalypse somehow. But his terrible parenting ends up basically causing the apocalypse, so that's awkward. I guess in the comics, the majority of the babies weren't adopted and they were left to die. So I guess the Umbrella Academy members were lucky in that sense. But Hargreaves was far from being Father of the Year. Hargreaves didn't even bother to name his children. He just called them in the number that he adopted them. I mean, who doesn't bother to give their kids names? Okay, who pre-apocalypse doesn't bother to give their kids names? This guy gave no warmth and no love to these kids. The most warmth these kids got were from their robot mom or monkey butler. Yeah, don't ask. That's never really explained. The monkey butler part. I guess the mom is explained. When I was watching the show, it reminded me a lot of the Harlow monkey studies. Harlow wanted to study how newborns bonded with their mothers and what the basis for that bond was. The theory at the time, and please remember this was all the way back in the 1950s, the basis of the bond they believed was food related. Basically, the kids getting food, and that's why they love their parents. And because no one ever bites the hand that feeds them, right? Totally a thing. So there were a few different stages of this experiment. The first was taking newborn monkeys and raising them in complete isolation to see how this would affect them when they were introduced to other monkeys. The results were not good for the subjects. The babies were scared and unable to communicate or socialize, and were often bullied by the other monkeys, and then would end up being aggressive. The longer the monkeys were isolated, the worse their ability to cope and socialize became. A group of newborn monkeys were taken from their mothers and placed in a cage with 2 surrogates. There was a wire one and a cloth one. Half of the monkeys could get milk from the wire mother, while the other half could get milk from the cloth mother. Both groups spent the majority of their time with the cloth mother, even if the wire one was the one that actually had the milk on. Either way, behavioral problems developed in these monkeys if they were left with their surrogate mothers for longer than 90 days. The main character that reminded me of this experiment was number 2, or Diego. The rest of them seem to understand that she's a robot, but Diego seems to view her as just mom. Considering how much individual care and attention he received from this robo-mother, it's no surprise that he grew an attachment for her. To Diego, even if she wasn't a real adult, she was still one of the few adults in his life that actually sought out to give him any kind of warmth and affection. So the morality and ethics surrounding this experiment were pretty bad. But it did lead to the theoretical groundwork for John Bowlby and attachment theory. Attachment theory holds that childhood relationships are the groundwork for adult relationships. According to attachment theory, there are 4 types of attachment styles. And although people don't typically fit perfectly into any one of these styles, I still wanted to have some fun today and put every single character, well, main characters, in the Umbrella Academy in one of these categories. So first up, we have secure attachment style. These adults feel connected and satisfied with their partners. These relationships are supportive and comprised of 2 healthy adults. And this would be no one. Let's be real here. None of the Umbrella Academy members are this well off. The closest we get is Hazel and Agnes, who are healthier adults in comparison to the rest of the series, which is not saying a whole lot. Though Hazel and Agnes are deeply in love, their love story unfolds just a little too quickly. I mean, who ditches their job after knowing a guy for less than a week? Come on, Agnes. He could be a time-traveling assassin for all you know. Next up, we have dismissive avoidant or anxious avoidant attachment. So these people avoid relationships, generally keeping to themselves, and seem to feel that relationships just aren't for them. They don't need them. They're not necessary. Who else does this fit but Diego? He had one relationship, which the writer seemed keen on killing for his character development, I guess. Come on, I think we're better than this, people. Other than this one relationship, he seems content with fighting crime on his own, in his own way. When I was first making this list, I had a little bit of a difficult time with number 5. His relationships in the show are interesting, to say the least. Given his extended time in isolation, this makes sense. In most of his relationships, he's avoidant. He dismisses everyone around him as lesser, even though he is going out of his way to try to save them all. The closest bond he has to anyone in this show is his mannequin Dolores. Yes, I did say mannequin. Someone who, although he pretends to be in a relationship with, cannot actually talk to him. Dolores is telling of how he believes a real relationship should be. Dolores is seemingly smart and kind, but willing to call him out when necessary. She does seem to mother him by prompting him to take care of himself and stop drinking. On to anxious preoccupied and anxious resistant attachment. I would argue that the majority of people in the Umbrella Academy seems to fit this. So these adults are less secure in their relationships and often feel their partner must complete or fix them. Although they want healthy relationships, they often act in ways that would sabotage them, such as being overly clingy or jealous or demanding. I mean, let's just look at good old number 1, Luther. Luther would do anything to make his dad happy, including sitting on the moon in isolation for years. It's as if finally getting the love from his father will fill that gaping hole in his personality. His love for his sister, yes, that's right, I'm not a whole of this whole they're not technically blood-related thing, gets in the way of him being able to actually think critically about his sister's powers. His other sister's powers. And by locking Vanya up, he basically ensures that the apocalypse will happen. Thanks, Luther. Allison also seems to have an anxious attachment style. She tends to keep Luther at a distance, only getting jealous when she finds when he lost his virginity to some person at a rave. Uncomfortable sibling love aside, we also see how this plays out in her relationship with her own daughter, using her powers on her daughter is demanding her daughter be a perfect child. Vanya starts out the series seeming more like an avoidant attachment style. It seems like, besides giving violin classes, she actively avoids getting in relationships or being involved with outside people. At least until Leonard comes along. Since Vanya is so unused to having a relationship with other people, she clings onto this one viciously, going as far as to push her sister Allison away. When Allison questions his super creepiness and his true motives, Vanya doesn't want to hear it. Like, seriously, Vanya, you aren't the slightest bit concerned that this guy just invited himself into your place while you weren't there? It's not normal. You've known this guy a couple of days. Out of all the siblings, the hardest to get a good read on is Ben. Since Ben is dead, we only really ever see him through Klaus's eyes. But if it came down to it and I had to guess, I would say anxious attachment. That's because he's unable to move on to the afterlife. He's stuck looking after his siblings. Lastly, we have disorganized. The people with this attachment style tend to become overwhelmed with their feelings, which leads them to actively avoid their feelings. Mood swings and fear of commitment is common with this style. This one was the easiest one for me. And last one up, Klaus. In the series, Klaus is able to form one meaningful relationship, mostly off-screen. But for the most part, his other relationships are marked by his inability to handle his own feelings. In an effort to keep his powers off, he uses any form of drugs or alcohol he's able to get his hands on. He's also both drawn to helping out his siblings and scared to get too close to them at the same time. Okay, guys, that was fun. What do you think your attachment style is? Let me know in that comment section below. If you liked this video and would like to see more like it, please thumbs up, subscribe, follow me on Instagram, and all that other YouTubery stuff. Bye!